Welcome back to Wearing Pants Again, a podcast about creative identity, self discovery, and showing up for yourself, your work, and the life you want to create. I'm Lauren Siegel, and each week I sit down with people navigating their creative paths to talk about the process, the doubts, the wins, and everything in between. My guest today is Christian Noble, a documentary wedding photographer and the founder of Noble Photo Co. Christian shoots on film and brings an authentic, storytelling-driven approach to his work. In this conversation, we talk about how he got started with photography, why he chooses to shoot on film, and how he captures moments that feel real and emotionally honest. We also get into what it means to be a creative and how to keep showing up with intention. Hi, Christian. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, I'm stoked to be here.
I've been following you on Instagram for a little while now, and I'm a really big fan of your work. How did you get started with photography?
Anytime my work resonates with someone, it's cool, because I'm just a guy on a couch, so it's nice to hear that it meant something to somebody. I got started because I was bored. I was living in a city and I knew I was going to be there for only a little bit of time, and had moved around a bunch for college and stuff, and was like, well, I kind of have friends back home. I have friends where I went to college, and I'm only going to be here for like 2 years, so I probably shouldn't put down roots here. And that was a good idea because now I don't have to go back to that city anymore and visit, people. But I got so bored, and so I was like, I need to pick up a hobby. And it just so happened to be photography. I had some friends in college that took really cool pictures, and I just always thought that was cool. And so I picked up a camera with my tax return and just wanted to see, like, you know, can I do this? And through like 8 or 9 years, here we are.
And how did you get started with film photography specifically?
Yeah. I shot my little sister's wedding and I cut her quite the deal. I did it for free because she's my little sister. And to say thanks, she actually got me a film camera. And this was like, I think every film photographer feels like they started shooting film before it was cool. But I think I really feel like it was before like every wedding photographer offered film, And she got me an old film camera to say thanks for shooting my wedding, and that kind of just ignited it from there. There's a film lab coastal film lab that I'm lucky to live like 5 minutes from. And so I think getting my hands on a film camera and then having, access to like such a wealth of knowledge and this awesome lab, really helped me like go beyond shooting my first two or three terrible rolls, where I ruined everything and it had to be garbage. So yeah.
I actually recently got a film camera. It was the one that I had asked you on Instagram what you would recommend, and I got
Oh, cool.
the Canon. It's actually behind me right here.
Oh,
And
shit. Yeah.
I've only had one roll developed, and there were a few good photos, but yeah, a lot of bad ones.
That's
So.
how it goes for sure. I tell everyone that gets a camera, I'm like, just be prepared to hate like the first, you know, couple $100 that you put through it, but then you'll get good, and then you'll have like entire rolls where you're like, no, I nailed it.
So now you are the owner and operator for your own business, Noble Photo Co. How did that come to be, and how long has that business been going for?
Yeah, I wish I had a really cool answer for you, but I kind of only have like a grimy one. When I got into photography, I bought a camera thinking I can make money with this. And I just a little entrepreneur, I think growing up my whole life, I would like go to yard sales and buy, old Nintendos and flip them and stuff like that. And so when I was bored, I was like, let me see if I can make some cash doing, like senior photos or just, shooting for friends and stuff. And it seems weird to me now that it's like my life and I like truly genuinely love it, and I'm so thankful for photography because it's become so much more than just like how I pay my bills, you know what I mean? It's probably one of the bigger parts of who I am as a person. But I just started out because I was like, hey, people are paying how much for senior photos and family pictures and Christmas card photos and stuff. And so I started off just trying to as a little side hustle thing, and then really fell in love with weddings specifically. And that's kind of where it evolved from like, okay, I'm gonna make a couple $100, a month to like okay, I want to do everything I can to make this how I spend all of my time.
So did you have a traditional 9 to 5 at one point, and then when did you decide, hey, I'm gonna take the risk and just do photography full time?
Yeah, I'm so sorry if you can hear my talk. Hold on. Yeah, I had a horrible 9 to 5. I had this marketing analytics background, and so I had a job where I woke up from at 5 a.m. I'm sorry, I got to work at 5 a.m. and worked 5 to 2, making very boring market analysis decisions for this like website that is no longer a thing, and was taking pictures like while I was doing that, and then got laid off twice in 10 months and was like, all right, screw it. I'm going full. I'm not applying for another job. So I kind of slowly built it up from there. I'm sorry, I slowly built it up while I had, this full-time job that supported me. And then when I got laid off twice, back to back like that, I was like, no way, I'm just going to make this work, you know?
So how long has it been that you've been doing this full time?
Yeah, I've been full-time for 6 years. Maybe I might almost be at 7 now.
One of the things I really love about your photography is your approach and kind of the focus on just capturing candid moments. Can you tell me a little bit about that approach?
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like in order to explain my approach, I kind of have to explain how I feel about weddings in general. I think that, you know, this is my job. So I get that there's a certain layer of like, well, you have to say that. But I really believe that weddings are probably the greatest human invention, maybe after like the wheel. Just because how often do people come together to celebrate love, and like, it transcends most cultures and that sort of thing. And, you have maybe your funeral is the only other time that people will come together to like embrace you and your life and your choices and stuff. And so I just think weddings are this like beautiful, sacred event, and it celebrates the best of humanity, And so because of that, as a photographer, I hold this event in like such a high regard, and that led me to wanting to capture these weddings as authentically as possible. It went from being like, okay, these photos are cool and like I can get paid to take them, to like I kind of feel like I have a responsibility, to like to not turn someone's wedding into like the launch of their influencer career, but instead as like a genuine documentation of their love of this, highest of days that they're going to experience. And so because of that, I had to quickly put together a way to like put one foot in front of the other and show up at these weddings and make awesome pictures that mean something and that are meaningful. And so that kind of led me to my approach, which is to try to give couples a chance to have the most authentic and truthful day that they can, with as little of my fingerprints on it as possible. Obviously, as a photographer, I have a certain eye and I use certain gear, so my photos will have a certain look to them. But as much as I can, I want my couples to feel like, okay, that's what it actually felt like on my wedding day. And so for me, what that looks like in a practical sense is just removing as many barriers as I can between myself and the subject and the day, the experience. And so that looks like I don't have a offering that's like time based. I don't, for 99% of the time. Every so often something comes along where it just has to be that way. But 99% of the time, I don't shoot weddings with like a strict timeline for photos. Obviously a wedding will have a schedule, like food needs to know when to be ready, guests need to know when to arrive. But from a photography perspective, I'll keep it like as loose as I can, just because I feel like that's how you actually experience life. If you've ever been to a party or hung out at the beach, if there was like a person there that was like, all right, for the next 15 minutes, we're going to eat our sandwiches and then we'll spend 5 minutes in the water and then we'll come back out and reapply something. You know what I mean? Like that's not fun. That's not enjoyable. That's not organic. If you're going to the beach with friends, you just kind of go and see what happens. You know what I mean? And I want weddings as much as I can. I want my weddings to feel like that. And so that's a very long-winded answer to your question, but my approach is just what's like the least impact I can have on this wedding, um, and give it the best shot at being the beautiful, wonderful, amazing thing that it is, right? Like I don't need to do anything to make people happy or like make people laugh or smile or cry or whatever because we're at a wedding, and like all of that is going to happen if you give it room to. So my approach is giving as much room as I can.
What made you kind of fall in love with shooting on film, and what talk about like why you chose to incorporate that into your wedding photography?
Yeah. I don't think I have anything really like new to say about film. So this will probably sound like something people have heard before, but film is a really awesome way to force yourself to let go of the creative process. When you're on a digital camera and you can take a photo and then half a millisecond later see that photo, it's almost too tempting, right? Like you were like, oh, that one didn't come out, so I'm going to shoot it 500 more times and then I'll get the perfect shot, and film forces you to not do that. It forces you to trust and it forces you to take creative risks and stuff. And so that's what I really fell in love with it for. There's a lot of people that would say like, oh, this a photo's better because it's on film. And on one hand, I totally agree, right? Like there's no replicating the colors, there's no replicating the feel, the tactility of a film photo. But really, any photo you get on film, you should be able to get on digital, or any moment, that you capture. I think if you're a good photographer, you should be able to do both. But I mean, film is just such a part of the creative process for me because of how much easier it is to let go and not repeat a moment over and over and over till I get it right. Just trust myself. And yeah, and there's some other technical stuff like it can handle light, better. But yeah, that's what has me continuing to shoot film as like prices go up, as I get frustrated with bad rolls or lab issues or whatever, kind of that undeniable like magic that comes from it is what keeps me coming back for sure.
Yeah, I really appreciate that aspect of film photography as well. I feel like there's something that just also feels very authentic about it. Whereas, on the iPhone you can shoot a burst of 100 photos, and
Yeah.
but when you're doing a wedding, obviously I feel like there's certain moments that you can't go back and redo. Like, so how do you does that add more pressure when you're shooting it on film?
You know, um, yeah. This isn't a very marketable answer. I think I definitely try with my couples to make it clear that they are in the hands of an expert and that I'm going to do a great job. And I mean, I think that's all true. But also, there's a certain element of like, if I miss it, they'll never know. Like if a photo comes out poorly, then they came out poorly. It was a swing and a miss, but at least I swung, and at least um, I just don't think people know what you didn't get, right? They only know what you do get and what you do show them. And obviously that's not advice I would give to someone who's never picked up a camera before. But if you have like a certain level of proficiency, then you'll hit the important shots, and the risks that you take will either pay off or they'll die in secret. So really, like once you kind of wrap your head around that, or at least in my experience, once I wrapped my head around that, it becomes a lot less stressful because I know that what's best for the photos, what's best for the couple is if I try to go out there and make something awesome. And there's very few things that are awesome that come with no risk, and any great human endeavor, started with some trial and error for sure.
Do you go into each wedding with a shot list or some sort of creative vision based on the couple or the location?
No, actually, the opposite. I try really hard to do what it might be John Dolan that coined this, but the idea of like entering empty, right? Like, I really want to experience the wedding as organically as possible, and I think the best way to do that is, it's like a good first date, right? Like the conversation just has to flow, like the day just has to come and wash over you and you have to experience it. And I think if you walk in much like a date with like too many expectations, you're really only going to be disappointed, or maybe you'll nail your expectations and then you'll miss some other things. So I have family photo lists. Like people are like, oh, I want a photo with my mom, I want a photo with my grandma. Like, of course, like that's all awesome, and I'm happy to do that. But in terms of like, okay, there's this epic spot at the venue here, there. If a couple says that, if it's important to them, I'm happy to do it. But I certainly don't spend my mental energy like trying to wrap my head around all that stuff, because I just think, at least for me, the best results come when I am surprised and thrilled by the wedding, not like seeing a target from a mile away and plotting how I'm going to get this one photo, because that's just the opposite of what I'm trying to do. Maybe not the opposite, but that's not authentic in my perspective. But I mean, man, there's some awesome photographers that do that and get incredible photos. So, um, yeah.
I was going back on your Instagram and I saw that you would do this thing where you would hand out point and shoot film cameras to guests at a wedding. Do you still do that?
Yeah, I do it like a lot of the time. I took it out of my contract because a lot of my couples, I think, are so in love with that idea that they arrive at it before they meet me and they bring their own disposable cameras. And so if I show up to a wedding and there's like 12 disposable cameras being passed out to guests, I don't add to that number because what's a drop in the bucket. But yeah, I love passing around a point and shoot film camera to guests. It's funny because I continue to do it because it gets awesome pictures. We could talk a lot about like permission and what it's like to get invited in and trusted and like all this stuff. And I work really hard to make that happen and to build trust with my couples. But there's just no substitute for like your bridesmaid that was like your college roommate and you held her hair while she threw up all over you. You know what I mean? Like that level of trust, like I'm just never going to get there in the amount of time that you have with a couple. And so handing out a point and shoot film camera to people is a really fun way to get like the most intimate of looks into a wedding day, because it's these people who they don't care if they offend the bride, or they know how they know explicitly how not to, or intimately how they know how not to be a burden or whatever. And so you get these awesome photos. But what's funny is sometimes you get photos that are so good that I'm like upset because I'm like, I wish I had gotten that. Like there are photos on my Instagram that I did not take that a guest took on my camera. And so I kind of take credit for it as like the creative director. But like there's a recent picture I posted that's the first kiss, and a guest took it on like a $12 camera, and I took it on like a $6,000 camera setup. And like I love their photo so much more. And it's like the photo of the first kiss.
I love that though. I think that's so fun and such a fun way to, make it even more special by involving, the people that are there. Well, I'm curious to ask, in your opinion, what makes a good photo?
Oh my gosh. Wow, what a big question. Yeah, I mean that's obviously impossible to answer, but in my opinion, the photos that I'm most proud of, the photos that I like the most, are ones that kind of hook you and then like demand and deserve a little bit more of your attention. Like there's more to discover, right? Like you look at the photo, and the more you look at it, the more you see, and the more that kind of tickles your brain because you start to see the layers and the depth, and there's just so much to absorb. That's my favorite kind of photo. One that's a frame full of people, or just a scene that has a lot of depth to it. Um, that's a photo that to me on a wedding day is a good photo. If it's a photo that I want to look at for more than like 2 seconds, then I'm stoked.
And so I know you shoot weddings, you do digital and film. Do you have any sort of way when you're at a wedding of choosing which moments to capture on film versus digital?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. My kind of shtick is that I carry like 10 cameras at once. Maybe not 10, really probably like three or four on me at all times, but I bring to a wedding like 10 cameras. Um, and so kind of my strategy is to just carry two or three on me at any given time. And then there's kind of an intuition to it all, but really, like, I'm going to take the picture of what's happening in front of me with the camera that I have on me. And so, unless there's a technical limitation like a lack of light or a certain lens that I need or that sort of thing, if it's just your like true blue candid photo, then I took it with the camera that I had on me. And I think that's another thing too. Like I am I have worked hard to be like proficient with my gear, but then after that, I'm really like trying so hard to be as almost as clueless as possible on a wedding day. And then kind of enter like a flow state almost where I'm just documenting and enjoying and capturing. And I think that's where like my best photos come from is when I didn't plan for it. You know what I mean? So like if I know something's about to happen, I'll usually have like one digital, one film on me, so that I can swap really quick if I need to. But yeah, it's kind of just the camera that I have on me. That's how I'm going to capture the moment in front of me.
One of the things that I'm still trying to, I guess, come to grips with film photography is kind of the lack of instant gratification of seeing how the photo turns out. Like, how would you describe that feeling for you of like you go to a wedding and then you're finished, but you don't even know right away how the photos are going to turn out?
Yeah, that's torture. That sucks. That's a horrible. If I win the lottery, I'll probably keep shooting weddings and I'll just build a film lab in my house. No, I think the patience is a valuable part of it. Um, yeah, it's brutal, right? Like I will say this: there's no better feeling on than when you're at a wedding and you take a photo and you're like, and you feel it in your gut. You take it on film and you feel it in your gut. And you're like, that was the one. Like that, I know it. I felt it. I know it. I nailed it. That's it. And then, 2 weeks go by and you get the film back and you immediately hunt for that photo and you find it and you were right and you did nail it and it was perfect. That's like the best feeling in the world. And then the worst feeling in the world is the opposite of that. When you think you nailed it and then it comes back and someone's eyes are, half closed in a weird way, or you didn't nail it. That's torture. So I mean, the patience is just part of it. But yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just the name of the game. It's
Mhm.
getting good with your gear, getting confident with it, being proficient with it, and then hoping you were right, hoping you had everything set.
Yeah, but I will say though, sometimes I feel like the photos that are mistakes they actually kind of look cool and they have characters.
Yeah, I posted a photo today on my story that is getting a ton of people being like, "Oh my God, this is so cool. How did you do this?" And it is 100% the result of an accident. I took a photo without flash that needed flash, and then I took it again with flash, and it's just a double. I'm sorry, it's just a double exposure, and did not I did not intend for it to look that way, but it came out awesome. And people are loving it and people are like, "You're so good." And I am telling all of them like this is just completely an accident. And that's a cool thing about film is like you said, like, beautiful accidents.
What does it mean for you personally to be a part of capturing this day that people are going to cherish for the rest of their lives?
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to describe exactly how big of an honor it is. Um, it really hit me the first time when someone texted me out of the blue on like a random Tuesday a picture that I had taken of their grandpa, and they said, "Hey, I just want you to know, like my grandpa died a week ago, and we used this picture for him at the funeral. It just meant so much to us that we had that." And I wanted to text back like, "Please don't ever tell me something like this again. Like you've ruined my day. This is so sad." But I mean, I'm just kidding. But to to be invited into such a sacred space and trusted to document it is a huge honor. You know what I mean? And it like I've made lifelong friends, from taking their photos, and we just connected in a way that like, I'm like, can we hang out for real outside of this? and you see some beautiful stuff, you see some sad stuff, you get to experience so much of humanity, and it's just a huge honor. There's, when before I really found my approach, and what I wanted to do and the way I wanted to do it, it got to feel like a little monotonous, you know what I mean? And that was kind of scary for me because I was like, no, these are weddings. Like I shouldn't feel like I'm clocking in. I should feel like I'm, each one should feel like the a big deal to me, because it is a big deal. And if I can't get my head, if I can't wrap my head around that idea, then I don't think I'm the right fit to be there. So I try really hard to keep them like sacred, awesome, as sacred and awesome as I can, because that's what they are. And so, um, yeah, I have so much respect for a wedding day.
I guess kind of transitioning a little bit to more of the business, branding, social
Yeah.
media. How has social media impacted your journey as a photographer and an entrepreneur?
Oh, for sure. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse to be doing this in this era, I think if I had it my way, I would, live in the mountains somewhere and people would mail me letters saying, "Will you please shoot my wedding?" And I would mail them back and I'd say, "Send me some money. And if it's enough, I'll show up." Uh, I'm just kidding. But, I think it's just it's just part of it. It's just part of the ecosystem, right? Like there's a place where people go to digest photos, and that's Instagram. And for better or worse, if you want to be a wedding photographer and you didn't get the pleasure of starting 20 years ago, you probably will have to be on Instagram. There's probably some annoying person listening to this right now saying, "No, you could just do SEO, or you could just do," but shut up. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you kind of have to be. You have to be present. You have to show up where people are looking. And so social media is in a sense, an extremely powerful tool, right? Like I've had photos viewed by thousands of people, you know, and that's led to me getting to go to some awesome places and do some awesome things. And I don't know how I would have gotten there without Instagram. Um, and on the same note, it's a horrible, disgusting monster that adds so much noise to the world and is pretty horrific. So I always try to really show up, kind of like my approach. I try to show up as organically as possible, and I don't plot out my captions a week in advance. And if I'm posting a photo, it probably exported it from my computer 2 minutes before I posted it. Like I just try to keep it as human as possible. Um, and that's probably not the best strategy, but it's I don't know. I'm not willing to compromise on that for, one more wedding a year or whatever. So yeah, it's a tool that I try to keep at like an arm's distance.
I mean, I think that seems like a pretty good, authentic strategy. So I can appreciate that. I know personally, I mean, I sometimes, I really do enjoy photography. And but sometimes I guess I struggle on feeling like I need to choose a niche, which I mean, I don't have a photography business, but I feel
Yeah,
like on social media, sometimes honestly, maybe it's just pressure that I put on myself where I'm like, I need to just find a lane and stick to it. It's like, how is somebody supposed to figure that out?
right. Yeah, um, something that was said to me, and I've kind of refined in my head, and it really carries me through a lot of that kind of stuff, is this idea that like I have two jobs as a photographer you know, who sells what he does and who is hired out by people, right? Like if you're a hobbyist and you just want to take pictures for fun, then who cares about what anyone thinks? Go do that and enjoy it and savor it because it's like a beautiful, awesome thing. But if you do want to like, position yourself in a certain way to turn this hobby into a job or to make money or to even just to get, recognition or try to refine your art and that sort of thing. Like if you want to formalize any part of it, then I think it's been a really good mentality for me. Kind of this idea that I have two jobs. And so, although I call myself a wedding photographer, I really have two jobs. The first job is to make art. right? And that is the pictures that you see. Like I um, do a lot to keep myself creatively fulfilled, keep myself creatively energized, sustain whatever words you want to use. Like I do so much to make sure that I can do a good job of creating art. And that is the most important job, and it exists in its own universe, and I don't let anything touch it. And then the second job is create or is selling that art, right? So the first job is creating art, and then the second totally separate job is selling that art, right? And so I try really hard not to let the two mix, because if you start making art that's easy to because if you start making art because it's easy to sell, then you're not making art, you're making commerce. And so kind of severing I don't have you seen Severance, kind of severing my mind, and I have the person that makes art, and then I have the person that sells that art. That's really been helpful, and I think it does certainly mean that, like, if you're making art that's hard to sell, then you're going to have a harder time. But the art will be pure, and it'll be organic, and I think as you get better at your art, it becomes easier to sell. And so um, there's a certain sect of wedding photography that I'm happy to be a part of, and kind of the main idea of that sect is that, like, it's all about the art. And so it you know SEO is great if you want to do SEO, if you want to show up on TikTok, great, whatever, whatever, whatever. If you want to, get this awesome welcome guide, if you want to post ads, all that stuff's great. The number one thing is the art. And if you get the art dialed, then the rest of that will follow. And so that's kind of been where I've set up camp. Um, and, there's probably some business guru that can tell you for sure that I'm missing out on opportunities because of that. But it's been what has been the most sustaining and fulfilling and enjoyable thing for me. And yeah, I'm not homeless yet. So we'll see.
How many weddings do you typically do in a year?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Every year I tell myself this is the year I do 25 weddings, really 24, which would be two a month for me. Eventually, I would love to do five, but yeah, I try to do like two a month. It really doesn't shake out to an even two a month. It'll really be like three or four one month and then none, another month. But yeah, like 20 to 25 is my sweet spot. Um, I keep having friends and siblings and relatives that get married, and so I usually end up doing more than that because I just love weddings. So it's kind of like, do I want to sit on my couch, or do I want to be at the most fun party of the weekend? So I do a bit more than that, but every year the goal is 20 to 25.
And how do you stay creatively inspired in between jobs?
Yeah, yeah. Man, huge question. 20 to 25, that number is something that I arrived at, not necessarily financially, but just because that's about my limit before I start getting, deep fried, and I start, running out of creative juice, and I am just trying to survive, and so I say that to say that, like, really it's just about managing my workload, and making sure that I'm charging enough that I can shoot the amount that allows me to be creative and fulfilled. Um, and then outside of that, I think doing stuff like this, right? Like engaging with other people's creativity, supporting other endeavors, switching up different mediums, like I really love listening to people talk about their craft. I don't drink coffee, but I love to get in a room with like a person who's really into it, and I'm like, oh, like tell me about, what kind of burr, are you using when you're grinding the beans and stuff. And I don't know, just kind of being around creative people and investing in other people's creative endeavors, like fulfills my cup and is exciting and interesting, and watching good movies, listening to good music, just surrounding yourself with creativity. Things, what do they say? Like, if you water something, it'll grow. I don't know.
I understand you're getting married in
Yeah.
December. Is your wedding
Yeah.
going to be shot on film?
It better be. Yeah. Yeah. No, one of my good friends, Alexander Donaldson, is photographing it. I tell him if he was worse at photography, he'd be one of my groomsmen. But he's just too talented, so he has to work. Um, yeah, yeah. He's going to shoot a bunch of film.
Awesome. Do you have any bucket list destinations for weddings that you would like to shoot?
Yeah, I want to go to Japan so bad to photograph a wedding. That's probably like 60% because I just want to go to Japan. But I am just really interested in the way that other cultures celebrate weddings, and I've gotten to see a good mix of that in the States, but I think a lot of I want to be careful to not say something that I have no um actual knowledge of, but I feel like a lot of like Eurocentric weddings have so much overlap. And so really anywhere that's like different from what I experience is exciting to me. Japan's probably number one on my hit list there. And then I really want to shoot like an Orthodox Jewish wedding. Um,
Why?
they're so cool.
I'm Jewish, so that's why I think that that's funny, but
Maybe
Orthodox, yeah.
maybe not Orthodox. Maybe I should have said Hasidic. Have you seen the videos, or I don't know, maybe you've been in a room, but where it's just like a flood of people, and they're doing, and they're all in black, and they're doing that like super rhythmic dance. Have you seen what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, the
I
tradition.
would kill to be in the room for that. Like that would be photographed so well. So wherever those are happening, I want to do that. And
Okay,
if you know anyone, get me in the
yeah.
room.
I'll see who I know.
Yeah.
Um, if you weren't doing photography as your career, what job would you want to be doing?
Yeah. Okay. The job that I would love to do that I don't think I could, but I would love to do stand-up comedy or maybe not stand-up comedy, but be in the world of comedy. That's probably the art form that I most appreciate. Um, you know, writing for movies or something like that, I think is so cool. Such an impressive skill. Um, I wish I was brave enough to try to do both. So if I could do anything, then that would probably be it. But I think realistically, I don't know. I think realistically, it's hard to imagine not doing photography. Maybe like if both my hands fall off and I can't take pictures anymore, maybe like creative consulting and maybe that's when I would finally start trying to do mentorships and talking to people about creativity. But no, I really hope my hands don't fall off because I intend to do photography for a while.
What's one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self when you're just kind of starting out on your photography business journey?
Yeah, invest in cryptocurrency. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not a crypto person. I I think something that really finally clicked for me and made a huge difference was just this idea that like the only thing you really have is your unique perspective, right? And so I would have encouraged myself to stop trying to replicate other people's work, stop trying to chase, what was viral, and try to make something that really meant something to me. Um, I think the sooner you can figure that out as a photographer, the better, and then that'll be what feeds everything else. If you're making work that no one else can make, then you can charge more, you can do it more often, you'll have a better engaged audience, and it'll just all around be better. You'll be more fulfilled, to say the least, and you'll make work that resonates with you. So I think there's this temptation or maybe this pressure to fit into this box of what you think other people think a wedding should be like. But really, as a photographer and as an artist, like all you have is your unique creative voice. Because if your work looks like everyone else, then you can really only compete on logistics, on price, on availability, on other boring stuff. But as soon as you start making something that really only you can make and start building a portfolio that's truly yours, then that really opens up the world for everything else.
Yeah, that really resonates with me because well, part of what inspired me to want to start this podcast and kind of something I've been struggling with for the past few years is just trying to distinguish like what do I want to make versus you go on social media and you see what everybody is doing and I have this idea of what I think I should do.
Yeah,
I think like, should I be doing that? And then I realized I don't really want to be
yeah,
doing like
yeah.
silly TikTok dances like I.
No, totally. I mean, that pressure is so real, and like It's undeniable, and I think the thing is like if you go and you look at the people who are making stuff that you really enjoy, it like feels so authentic to them, and I think sometimes there are people who position themselves as photographers or TikTokers or podcasters or chefs or whatever. And what they really like doing is they like business, and what they're actually good at is business. And like there are photographers who, if tomorrow they woke up and couldn't be photographers, they would start, a business selling yo-yos or whatever and do just as good because what they're actually interested in is marketing and sales and networking and like all that stuff. And so I think that there is like oftentimes this like muddying of the waters where you see someone who's doing something and they're really good at it, but it's so refined and it's so clinical and like so well orchestrated, and it's impressive, right? And you think like, oh my God, this person is such a good chef or whatever. But what they really are is a good business person, and they're killing it in the business world. And I think that if you're that kind of person, then amazing. Go be that kind of person. You know what I mean? Like if you're that kind of person, then this podcast, then you could just interview someone every day, put them out, on all over TikTok, all over YouTube, all over whatever, and eventually find, whittle it down until you have your success model, and then just do that forever. And you could have like this huge podcast. And if that's what you're into, then great. And go do that. But if you like want to be like an artist and you want to make something because it means something to you, then you probably have a harder time with the others, or maybe not a harder time, but maybe like a slower climb and more of an uphill climb, because you have to do the hardest thing of all, which is like peer inside yourself and figure out what means something to you, and then how do you get that out there, and so it's just two sides of the same coin. But I think it's easy to compare yourself to what other people are doing, but oftentimes you're kind of comparing yourself to your idea of what they're doing and not really what they're like actually doing. I feel like I've kind of gotten off track here a little bit.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
no, that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I just see so many photographers where I'm like, oh my God, they're like doing all this stuff. And then I think about like, what does it take? What did it take for them to get there? And I'm like, it probably took so much more like, blogging than I ever want to do. And I don't want to blog, so I'm not going to. And if my business, in air quotes, suffers because of that, well, then fine. But I didn't spend my time doing a bunch of crap I didn't want to do because I thought I was supposed to because I saw someone else doing it. Like
Mm.
I think the only way forward that you really have is the one that means something to you.
Wow. That
In
was
my
really.
in my humble opinion.
Do you feel like you remember a point in your life where you kind of stopped worrying about what other people think of you and you just said, this is what I want to do. I'm going to stay true to it.
No. I worry what other people think of me all the time.
Wait, really?
Yeah, of course. If I post photos and they don't hit the typical benchmark of what they normally do, it's a poison. It's a horrible thing. I wish I could stop, but of course I notice, and of course I'm like, dang it! Like you guys didn't like this. I thought this was so cool. Um, no, yeah, yeah. I think to pretend like that stuff doesn't bother you is like inhuman. You know what I mean? I very much care what other people think about me. I try not to. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's helpful. I think I kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, what I'm doing isn't working. I'm not fulfilled. I'm shooting these weddings. They all feel the same, and I hate it. And I left a field that, as boring as it was, paid the bills, and my health insurance wasn't weird, and I had vacation time, and I got Christmas bonuses and like all this cool stuff. Um, and but it started to be not fulfilling, and so I started to think like, okay, I hate this, and I have to fix it, and that just kind of came with trusting myself, and it became clear to me. It was explained to me by the people that had gone before me, on this path, that what I was saying, like you really only have yourself, and so it didn't come from this like oh, he's got this level of confidence or this level of like who cares, that no one else has. It came from like, all right, you're telling me I have to leap to do the thing I want to do, so I'm gonna leap and I'm gonna hope. And the more you leap and the more you hope and the more you try and all that good stuff, it does get easier, you know. But no, for sure, I care what other people think. I think everyone does, and anyone that says they don't, whatever.
Yeah, I guess uh it's good to care a little bit. And but what I'm trying to work on personally is just being able to, put yourself out there and put whatever your work out there without, worrying about how, like, even if it doesn't get a certain number of likes, like I guess as long as you think it's good, I would like to think that that could be all that matters, you know?
Yeah, oh well, I mean, for sure. And I guess I should say this, like me saying that I care what other people think about me isn't like good. Like I wouldn't say like, "Oh yeah, like you should really be worried what other people think about you." But I just think it's part of the human experience, you know? And so I think to pretend like I don't care is doing a disservice to, whoever listens to this and wants to make something awesome. I would hate for anyone to feel like, "Oh, like I have to shed the weight of other people's opinions." Like if I don't know if you can hear my dog, she's barking again. Uh, if you can shed the weight of other people's opinions, then great, do that. But that's a lot of work, That's a lot of
Yeah.
emotional and mental growth that a person has to go through. And I think you can make awesome art and put it out, before you achieve nirvana, before you are enlightened. Like you should make things and put them out and just deal with the insecurity and just feel that and let it wash over you and don't dwell on it. Don't make it worse for yourself as you can. But yeah, put something out and be insecure for a little bit. Who cares, dude?
I know you posted on the Instagram. Did anybody have any topics that we didn't touch on that you would like to cover?
Yeah, yeah. Really, I actually got like three different people saying the same thing. And it was well, let me read it. I don't want to misquote these people. Okay, and of course it's gone. No, yeah, people ask basically like, what do I do to make people comfortable around my camera, and how do you get candid moments without people like staring down the lens, And I'm excited to answer it because I feel like I have some practical advice. I think that there's this like kind of idea that like the photographers who are making cool candid work are just like on this other plane of existence and they're like floating through the wind just capturing photos and no one knows they're there and no one notices them and like they just are these sneaky ninjas or like these otherworldly beings that are just doing the impossible. But that's not true, right? Like they're all extremely normal people and so for me, it's just a bunch of gimmicks like stacked on top of each other, uh, combined with uh, combined with an attitude and a desire and an earnest desire to create a candid environment. But I do things like I meet the couple beforehand. Like I haven't shot a wedding in probably over 2 or 3 years, where was meeting the couple for the first time on the wedding day. I do everything I can to meet people in person in real life before their wedding, just because what a crazy concept that I would be meeting you face to face for the first time. And like within the first 20 minutes of us meeting, I'm like photographing you in your underwear, right? Like that doesn't happen in real life. And like if you're meeting someone and they have a giant camera and they're in the room with you, like you're gonna be aware of that camera. That's just how it goes, right? And so if I can meet you beforehand and we can laugh together, we can spend some time together and I can get a sense for what it's like when you're in a room, and you can get a sense for what I'm like in a room and you can see how I take up space and what my voice sounds like and what I don't know, like you just get a sense for this person and then when the wedding day rolls around, I can show up as your friend. And then it's like, oh, there's my friend Christian. I'm so glad they're here. Not like, here's the photographer, now he's going to photograph me getting dressed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just think it's such a weird concept that you would be meeting these people that you're about to share the most intimate day of their life with, and you're meeting them for the first time and then like rolling right into business. So that's a huge thing for me. And that extends to guests too. Like in all my packages, I include the choice between an engagement session or a welcome party coverage. And I'm thinking about switching it to just the welcome party because it's that same logic, right? Like I can meet the couple, but also I can meet their friends, I can meet their family, I can meet their loved ones. And then on the wedding day, it's, oh, I know that's the photographer. He's cool. I know him. We laugh together. We're friends. And so I can just say, oh, what's up, dude? And then they ignore me because in my mind, in their mind, I'm not this like unknown entity. I'm just a guy, and then I can be just a guy around them and get cool pictures because they have kind of released themselves mentally from my presence. Same thing goes with like parents and stuff. Like I think a lot of people assume that my approach involves like, oh, like we're not going to take any formal photos, and we're not going to line up in a line and take a nice picture. But I love doing that because what I've found is that like it gives mom and dad and aunts and uncles and grandparents, it gives them the mental permission to check that photo off of their mental list, right? Like they know, okay, I've got the photo with my kid. Now I can go enjoy and I don't need the photographer anymore. So I'm just going to kind of ignore him. And that's when you get like the magical photo of the mom, laughing with her daughter, watching dad dance on the dance floor or that sort of thing. So I do a lot to try to be a familiar presence, to try to be a person that people are comfortable around. I think to speak generally, I think like being a dude can be helpful because I can kind of speak dude language to the other dudes. And I definitely want to be careful not to back myself into the corner of being like the bro photographer because that's definitely not my vibe. But I'm nervous in front of a camera too. Like I don't love getting my photo taken, but being able to relate to the guy and just make it clear to him like, hey, dude, I'm not here to make you feel silly. I'm not here to make you do a bunch of crap you don't want to do. I'm here to help you have a good time, get some good photos and go from there. And obviously, speaking very generally, that's not the case with everybody. But I think that's a bit of a superpower. And then I think the last thing I would say to that is like, it just kind of comes with shooting a bunch of weddings. And I've had multiple people say like, you are so calm. And I think that that's, you know, invaluable. I think if people see that you're not freaking out, then they're not going to freak out. And if you're not frantic, then they're not going to be frantic. And if you're relaxed, then they're going to be relaxed. And that's when everything aligns and you get, incredible photos because people are being themselves because they're comfortable.
What do you hope people feel when they look at your photos years from now?
Oh my gosh. Whew. I hope that I just hope it's frictionless. I hope that people look at my photos 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and it just feels smooth and it just feels like, yeah, that was that day. And that was who I was. And that was that moment, and it just feels organic and authentic and like truthful. And it's almost, it's hard to describe, right? Because it's like, how do you want people to feel about art? It's like a comforting painting, you know what I mean? Like my parents have had this painting up in their house of like this angel. And that's like, I don't know, that's just a comforting image to me, because I grew up seeing it all the time. And my, not to veer too far into this, but my parents are pastors and they, religion was a big part of my life and they prayed over us all the time. And so that image of an angel, it's an angel like watching over a child as he sleeps, which sounds so creepy. But like, just that's how I grew up with parents that like, you know, they prayed over me and that meant a lot to them. And that was one of the ways that they showed me that they love me. And now when I see that image, I'm just like, yeah, that is my parents' house. And so my hope is that 20 years from now, people feel that way about their wedding photos, and they think, yeah, that was my wedding. And yeah, that is my love story. And that is what my mom was like. If she's gone 20 years from now, like that, yeah, that my grandpa, like this is a picture of him and it really embodies who he is. That would be like the dream. My hope is that 20 years from now, I get to walk into a client's house and see a photo that I took that's still on the wall because it only got sweeter. It didn't spoil. You know what I mean? It didn't go bad. It didn't lose the context of Instagram and of TikTok dances and of trendy, stupid trends that aren't going to be around in a year. It wasn't built on those things. So when those things are gone, the heart of the photo is still there because it's built on the truth and beauty and love that's at a wedding.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thrilled, dude. I hope this goes well. I can't wait to listen to everything you put out.
Thank you so much to Christian for joining me. I really appreciated this conversation and getting to hear more about his creative journey. If you want to see more of his work, you can follow him on Instagram at Noble Photo Co. I'll also link to that in the episode description. If you're enjoying the podcast, it would mean a lot if you followed the show and left a 5-star review. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.